Hey guys, what's up? It is week 408. Do have some packages coming in the mail, but they're not here yet, so we're going to just hop right into the reviews. The first one up is from Arrow Video. This is a Dai production, which was one of the big kind of Japanese companies in the, when did they establish a lot of these companies? But along with stuff like Nikatsu, Toei, Toho, the big ones. So Dai, yeah, this is Play It Cool. The director is super prolific. He probably, just to listen to the commentary on here, this was like his 45th film. So if that tells you anything, Play It Cool was his 45th film. This was made in 1970. Dai would close its doors in late 1971. So it's towards the tail end here. And you can kind of tell this one's just a little bit, I guess you put it in like the exploitation kind of elements here. Now, it's not necessarily in line with something like in the Kazuo erotic films. But yeah, this follows the story of this young girl. She's highly intelligent. She's quiet. She states in the very beginning she hates men. I cannot stand men, and a lot of that is due to her home life, seeing her mother, who is a hostess, a prostitute of sorts, and she always tells her daughter, never fall in love with your customers. It's kind of what ruined her. She's our main character's father's no longer in the picture, and the mother's currently dating this just scummy piece of crap that gambles all the money. He's a salary man. And in the very beginning of the film, they pretty much established that these three are in this cramped apartment. And one day, this salary man decides to rape our lead character here in a really awful, kind of shocking way. It incorporates kind of gambling, which will play into the film later on. And in a fit of revenge, the mother rightfully kills him. So she ends up getting sent to prison, and this leaves our main character here completely alone to fend for herself. She ends up getting a job at the same place that her mother got as a hostess, and basically kind of scummy, Yakuza kind of style pimps and stuff are all looking after her. Everybody's kind of looking to grab her, but she ends up kind of being somewhat rescued by this former lawyer who's now forced to work for the Yakuza as kind of like a retainer. He's kind of screwed in that aspect. He's been disbarred. And she ends up getting taken to a nicer club where she starts to play this kind of gambling thing with the patrons, where if they beat her in cards, then they get to sleep with her. But she's basically taking all these guys' money. So she becomes like a highly intelligent, collected character. She's someone that never wanted this life, that had kind of a good-natured, kind of spirit about her, a clean presentation about her. But once she's thrown into this life, she just directly takes advantage of it and does such an amazing job. As it progresses, she obviously falls in love with this guy, this disbarred lawyer, and things get really complicated as it goes on. I don't want to spoil every little plot detail in this film, but it does have a couple exploitation scenes. I love the lead. The performance here is excellent. I can't think. She's in a bunch of these movies, a bunch of these kind of films, and she does a tremendous job. But she's an interesting character because she is, I guess you'd say, conniving, but she's always so sympathetic at the same time. And she's dealt such a bad hand in life, but she manages through her means and her intelligence, and she's doing it out of love for her mother. She just does everything possible, and she comes out on top. And I don't want to spoil a lot of things, but the final act of the movie has a lot of kind of story points that are really interesting and how it unfolds. And you know where it's going to end. And the ending here is perfect, honestly. Our character here is just outsmarts him, uses people to her advantage, and the idea that she has about men really doesn't fade. It comes back, and she just actually believes it. It's really well done. It does have a lot of the stuff, like club scenes that we see, a lot of, Tokyo nightlife, big city Japanese nightlife dancing and stuff. It's very, very much a product of its time in there. Some of the dance moves are a little silly at times, but that's kind of be expected. It is, a lot of nudity, a lot of stuff like that. Just a really great, interesting lead performance here. But yeah, I love the there's a part in with like family inheritance that is played out perfect, and a pregnancy which works really well. It's very clever. As far as the special features are concerned, we have brand new audio commentary with critic Japanese cinema specialist Jasper Sharp and professor and Japanese literature specialist Anne McKnight. That's interesting. That is good. Talk a lot about the director. Too Cool for School, brand new video essay on Play It Cool and the career of writer-director Masumura by Japanese film scholar scholar Mark Roberts. They talk a little bit about his career, stuff like that. Arrow put out a couple movies called like Black Test Car, and that was one that he did, which is an interesting, cool movie. Much different from this one. I believe it's the same director, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, this is a really enjoyable one from Dai, which it's kind of crazy that they closed 1 year later. This director, they said, he did like 45 films before this one, and so almost all of them for Dai at a certain point. But yeah, it's just a great film. I would really recommend this. I don't want to even call it exploitation, but it does have these elements in there, like drama, exploitation. I would say drama first, but also will appeal to exploitation fans and art film fans, all these kind of things, Japanese cinema fans. But just a really good look at kind of a modern, I guess, prostitution, hostess kind of gambling story. Good stuff. Play it cool. Great title, too. Fits really well. Okay, the next one up is from Arrow Films, and this is from Kazuo Mori, a double feature here. Pretty much one of the most prolific directors from Dai Films, and this is a pair of movies, both in '67. So the first one is a certain killer. These titles always confuse me because one's a certain killer, the other one's a killer's key. We're going to jump into a certain killer. This one is really good. So we kind of follow this kind of like assassin. He's like a lone wolf kind of guy. Keeps to himself. Doesn't talk very much. Very calm. Very collected. Very mysterious. He doesn't really let his his emotions get the best of him or what he's thinking. So he comes very highly recommended, but he doesn't really take very many jobs. A Yakuza approaches him and wants him to take this job because there is kind of this industry, this kind of crime boss that's muscling in on this other company, and they're going to get him knocked out of business and they're going to lose everything. So they want to offer him a good sum of money, 5 million, I think, yen, to kill this other crime boss so they can kind of move in and take his territory, all this kind of stuff like that. They play like victim, like they deserve it. He kind of ignores them. He doesn't really kind of believe what they're saying or care. He doesn't think it's a good enough kind of, case to do. So he runs this small like restaurant, and he has this young woman who helps him, and it's very quiet, very like polite, nice woman, and that's pretty much all he does. And then he kills people on the side as this kind of secret job. So one day there is this young prostitute inside of a restaurant. She can't afford to pay for her ramen. So he decides to pay for her just to get her out of this thing and help along and everything like that. And she basically attaches herself to him. And she's incredibly annoying. She doesn't take no for an answer. She's saying all these things, will not leave him alone. Kind of manipulates the situation so this other girl gets kicked out of the restaurant and leaves of her own fruition and stuff like that, her own will. And she just attaches to this guy. But the Yakuza won't give up so easy, so they approach him again, the crime boss this time, and he ends up taking the job, which complicates things because he's successful, but that's not really where the story goes after this. The young Yakuza who initially offered the job to him sees how much money he made from this job, sees him as this interesting kind of mysterious character, and he kind of also leeches onto him. So he has these two people kind of leeching onto him to kind of like teach him his ways, but he doesn't want to do that. So it gets complicated, and we almost have like a three-way relationship, and there's some shady stuff going on. And this guy, he's not your typical, like, I'm a villainous, angry kind of assassin, revengeful. He's clever, he's smart, he forgives, and he also just plays his cards completely right. But at the ending, there's kind of a big kind of showdown and reveal and stuff like that. But this is a really kind of quiet movie. The ending is not overly huge, but it's quiet. It's a really good portrayal of an assassin, and I liked how it ended. It didn't end in your typical fashion where everybody gets killed or something like that. It was a little bit more clever than that, a little bit more nuanced than that, and I thought it was an overall good kind of crime, kind of Yakuza film about an assassin. Good character, good performance by our lead in here as well. So as far as the special features are concerned, we have Japanese mono for both, subtitles, of course, brand new audio commentary for both films by critic Asian film cinema expert Tony Raines, the Definite Murderer, brand new 30-minute introduction to the films by Japanese film scholar Mark Roberts, and then we have the trailer for both films, and newly commissioned artwork for both films by Tony Stella. Illustrated collector's booklet featuring new writings on the film by Jasper Sharp and Earl Jackson. So yeah, that is a certain killer. I really enjoyed this one. Good stuff. I'm going to be very brief with the sequel here, A Killer's Key, which carries on the same character, and now he's no longer a chef. Same director, same year, same company, everything's the same. I'm going to be very brief, like I said. So now he's no longer a chef, he's kind of a dance instructor, and again, he's kind of approached to carry on this assassination, and he does get involved a little bit easier, I think, in this one. The characters aren't nearly as interesting. He does have, I think, like kind of more of a, I guess you'd say a romantic involvement. In the other film, he seems almost like an asexual kind of weird way where he doesn't want any connections to him. But as this one progresses, it becomes more convoluted and more complicated. And what I really liked about the original one is it's just so straightforward with the 3-4 major characters, and it's just quiet. The locations are done. It just feels more realistic and more grounded. And this one, we start to get in more periodic like espionage and company espionage, and it is similar to, like I mentioned it before in the first movie, it's similar to that like Black Test Car movie where we're like having these like weird kind of espionage things about a test car and things like that, and it gets that way too. And like the businessmen, Yakuza and stuff gets more complicated, and people double crossing, and of course it's not going to turn out right for him. He's going to use his poison needles like in the first film, but this one just doesn't work nearly as much for me. I think it's just a little too much different from the first one, and it goes in the opposite direction of what I liked about the first one. I felt like the first one was kind of a small, personal, contained film, and I feel like this one opens it into like more of a goofy, more spy Yakuza kind of world, and it's not really my forte. I don't hate the movie. I think it's fine. I think it's well made. I think it has a good performance in the lead. I don't think he's as good in this one or as interesting in this one, but I still think it's a good double feature, and both of them being presented together is a nice release. They both look good. They sound good. And yeah, I enjoy these, but the first one is much better. A Certain Killer, and it's a good title too. I'd recommend this set for both films, but the first one is definitely the better of the two. Okay, next up is an upgrade from Arrow Videos, and this is Don't Torture a Duckling. We have the 4K. An amazing movie. I think probably Lucio Fulci's best film he ever made. Not my personal favorite, but top 3 personal favorite, and I just think it's his best movie. I think it's his most well put together. Lucio Fulci, obviously one of the premier directors from Italy's heyday of horror films and all their kind of genre cinema. Don't Torture Ducklings, 1972, Rule Giallo. Now, Rule Giallos are a little bit different. It doesn't take place in a big city. This one's so different from the other Giallos. And I've talked about this film a couple times before, so I'm not going to dive deep into the special features because I'll link you guys to the Blu-ray discussion that Arrow did, which is the same, kind of release in terms of features. The 4K looks amazing, and this is one of Fulci's best shot films. I know people think gore and nightmare logic when you think Fulci, and this movie is so well put together in terms of a script, in terms of the cinematography and all that kind of stuff, although his other films are well shot as well. But this has a really great cast in here. Barbara Boucher, Thomas Milan, Mark Porral, or Tomas Milan, Mark Porral, just other familiar faces that I think we'd recognize. The kind of town idiot, I think he pops up, and he always plays that kind of like slow guy in films. But yeah, this is a great film. Like I said, it's Rule. It takes place in Italy, which are two things that a lot of giallos don't do. They're always abroad. They're almost like work as films that take place in different places, like almost like vacation kind of touristy things, like, hey, we're in London here in the swinging 60s and there's a murder or something going on. This one's completely different. This movie got in a lot of shit for Fulci because it's definitely a critique on the Catholic Church, which is a huge part of Italian cinema. And I will say a million times over again, the Italians, when it comes to critique of the Catholic Church, seem more genuine because they're in it. They believe, a lot of them are in it. They grew up with it, and they just have that kind of actual genuine feel. When I watch a lot of American films, it seems like they're outsiders writing about it. It seems just really cynical and not in a good kind of way, fakely cynical, if that makes sense. Like just very edgelord, instead of being like a truly deep cynical kind of thing about it. And I think Don't Torture a Duckling is probably the one thing that I think really hits the nail on his head. So there is a murder, a child murder in this kind of small rural town. And everybody starts pointing fingers. Is it the former drug addict, rich girl who is basically here to kind of detox and be sent away? And Barbara Boucher? Is it, we have the new reporter, Tomas Milan, coming in to look for things. Also, amazing actor, originally from South America, moved to Italy and stuff, and made tons of films in Italy, became an actor in America. He worked with Umberto Lenzi a million fucking times. And then is it, possibly other people like the town idiot or Florinda Balkan, who from Flava the Heretic and Lizard and Woman's Skin by Fulci, she's the kind of town witch. She's kind of the outskirts. She's an outsider. As the commentary stage, Troy Harworth breaks it down and talks a lot about the Fulci outsider, right? The Fulci outsider, who is somebody that Fulci obviously has some sympathy for, that he relates to, and Linda Balkan is definitely that character. But the way this story unfolds, with the burying of the baby, seeing the skeleton of the baby, and these hints and all these kind of things, and dead children, and your mind immediately goes to is some sort of like sexual thing, especially when we have this overly religious, superstitious town. But it's not that. I think it's just so much better how it's done. I think it's more, just refreshing. There is one of the best shots, I think, in Fulci's entire career, where it kind of starts off looking kind of at this landscape and the village, and we see this woman walking down the stairs from a far, far distance, going to wash some things, and you get the idea. It's a great idea of what this town is like. She walks down the stairs, and we follow her for the longest time, and it's such a beautiful scene, and eventually we discover a body, which I think is just great. I think it's just tremendous. Just gets you in that moment. It's just such good camera work in that aspect. It's just so different from the other ones. Riz Ortolani does one of his best scores of all time. I think he did actually compose the music for the singing background. I can't think of the actress, the singer's name, but she had a pretty decent career in Italy. The commentary, again, Troy Howarth does it solo. This is one of his personal favorite movies. Does a tremendous job. Explains all this stuff in and out. But, it's just a movie that I have a great fondness for. I think that all the performances are great. I think it lets you keep guessing who the killer is. And it has, I think, one of the best scenes ever shot. With the diegetic music used for Linda Balkan. It's heartbreaking. Always brings a tear to my eye. It's one of my favorite scenes of all time. Predates that kind of, beautiful music playing with horrific images that, that we see in Cannibal Holocaust done so well. And I mean, obviously they don't have the trademark. Cannibal Holocaust is not the first movie to do that, but it's so effectively done. I can always bring it up every time. This is a movie. It's one of my, I guess they call it a handshake movie on, Pure Cinema Podcast, which I love. But they call that a handshake movie, a movie that you always reference and stuff that you always love in the first meeting. And Cannibal Holocaust, for better or worse, has always been a handshake movie for me. It's just something that's embedded in my head. So when I think that kind of horrible imagery with beautiful music, sad, it like breaks your heart. But it's just such a beautiful scene. If you've never seen Don't Torture a Duckling, do yourself a favor. If you only watch Fulci stuff like Zombie, Beyond, City of the Living Dead, do yourself a favor and watch Don't Torture a Duckling. If you've only seen Bava or Argento's Giallos, I don't know why you'd only watch those and not anybody else's like Martino's or Fulci's, but really you should watch Don't Torture a Duckling. The 4K looks beautiful, looks gorgeous, sounds great too. Just masterwork from one of the best horror directors of all time, although this is not necessarily, giallo or those that gray subject. Some people consider most giallo horror movies, or at least horror adjacent. I would consider this horror enough. The murders are pretty horrific, and it has some disturbing imagery. It throws you a lot of red herrings, a lot of curveballs, but I think the story unfolds really well. Not confusing, just a perfectly done kind of, giallo. And I love the artwork here. I think both are really well done. And a lot of times the new artworks, I'm like, that's not great. But I actually enjoy the artwork on this one, which is a change, But all three of the artworks on the Arrows are pretty decent this time around for the new releases. But yeah, check it out. Don't Torture a Duckling. Good stuff. Okay, next up we have one from Rustblade Films. I know they do a lot of music stuff, but this is a DVD they put out. This is Drag Me To Fest, Tales from the Italian Horror Festival. Now this is 6 shorts that they chose from, I think, 2023's festival. Now it's kind of hard to remember all the titles. There are 6 movies from all around the world. Shorts, they don't really get the recognition they should. A lot of people crap on shorts. They don't watch shorts, and it's hard to remember shorts. Sometimes there's a brilliant short that blows up and it gets a director a lot of work. So there's 6 here. I'm not going to remember all the directors' names, but I will remember all 6 shorts. So the first one up is a really fun one, but incredibly gross. I think it's a Scandinavian short about this healthcare worker showing up to help this old lady in-house help, and there's all these visual hints and cues and everything like that. There's a spider web and all this kind of shit like that, and it plays and plays and plays. It's funny, it's playful, it's highly disgusting, but you know exactly where it's going. And there is some sort of monster in here, but the way they film it is brilliant. They don't ever show you full on, but they use practical effects. You see it in the corner of your eyes and stuff like that with editing techniques. This is one of the best shorts of the bunch. The next one here is, I believe, another Scandinavian short, and this one is incredibly weird, really well shot as well. We have a couple young, I think they're just a young couple, kind of coming to this farm to help them put up a fence in the beautiful mountain landscape, and they start building it, and the woman who's running the farm shows them this like giant like root rock thing, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? And she starts explaining about nature and all these things like this, and this thing starts to secrete this weird kind of stuff, and the guy starts to get really into it, really hooked on it, and he kind of goes to this weird levels and stuff like that. It's definitely kind of like saying that there's possibly like old gods worshipping nature, things like that. Really well shot, really weird, pretty solid short. The next one is called Long Pigs. Long pig, if you guys know long pig, of course, it's a slang term for, human flesh. Instead, it's a long pig. Human flesh is like pig flesh, so long pig. But this one is relatively short, 8 minutes. We kind of see this car go by, and we see like missing people, stuff like that, and it's gross as well. There's somebody just eating a lot of grotesque food. It's shot well, it's shot decent. The twist, I don't want to spoil it, but from the title you should be able to figure it out. The reveal or whatnot is just kind of done in a one shot at the end. It's okay. It's not my favorite short of the bunch. It's one of my least favorites. It's not poorly made. It's just I wanted a little bit more from it. But hey, it's a short. It's just supposed to get you intrigued. A lot of stuff works for you, a lot of it doesn't. And then I think we're going to hop into the fourth short here, and this one is Japanese, and this is essentially Evil Dead by mail. If that like kind of piques your curiosity, I would compare it to something like Bodybuilder from Hell, Japanese Evil Dead, if anybody's ever seen that movie, but kind of done in like a 15-minute segment here. So this person goes to open the mail. It's weird. We got this really great shot of somebody like tearing at the door, but they disappear because they're coming from above. Really creepy stuff. But he opens this package and a head comes out, and it's like ripping off its skin and gory detail, and we all have basically just an Evil Dead 2 kind of crazy ride of gore and weird kind of demon things going around. Very fun, very good short, very entertaining. We even do the old fucking eye pop gag from Evil Dead 1. Good stuff. The next short I think is probably my favorite because I'm a sick man, but this one follows this priest. This is also the longest one. This is an Italian one. This priest who is obsessed with bugs. He collects bugs, specimens. He's very detailed into it. And he seems to be genuinely happy with his life. He has a friend who comes and visits him, and they discuss religion, theology, all this kind of stuff like this, and insects. And one day he finds this kind of rare beetle that he's shocked that shouldn't be there. He's like, this beetle shouldn't be here. It's way too cold for this beetle. And he puts it in there. He pins it. Reminds me of the scene in Cannibal Holocaust with the butterfly with Mark Tommaso sticking the butterfly. I think there's a weird sense of cruelty to still do that when we have know what these creatures are, like your bug collection and shit, pinning them. It's just weird to me. I understand liking the interest in that stuff. It's like, but I'm pretty sure we figured out what all this shit is at this point. But he's basically just pinning these things, and he pins this beetle, and then later that day it's gone. There's a funny little gag in here, too, where one of the characters is like, I steal things, and then that plays in later. It's just nice little setup, nice payoffs in here. And it plays as this kind of dark comedy where this priest starts to lose his mind, lose his fate from losing this fucking beetle. But as it progresses, maybe the beetle's a little bit more than you think it is. Very fun short, very well shot, very entertaining, great location as well in the church and everything. And the final short is super artistic. It's one of these ones that's more, visual than, a storytelling, and it's really well done for what it is. It's way too artsy for me in a lot of aspects. Sometimes I like that. I like that artsy stuff in a film with storylines. But watching just strictly that kind of art stuff, it's done as a short. It's fine, but it's very colorful, very bizarre, very interpretive. How you would interpret it, I'm sure it means a lot. Fighting this kind of demon in this aspect. But it's by Julie Gunn, and this one doesn't work that much for me. It's not horrible, and a lot of people will really love it, but it's just okay. I would say that I would give 4 a thumbs up on here out of the 6, which is not bad for a short compilation or an anthology or something like that, which is always the way it is. Not every short or not every anthology vignette or segment's going to work for you. I said 4 work best for me. So yeah, if it sounds like it's up your alley, check it out. It is Drag Me to Fest, which is really hard to say without saying Drag Me to Hellfest, but the links will all be below. Okay, this next one here is a Spanish horror film from Mondo Macabro, and this is The Killer Is Not Alone from 1974-1975. Now, I love my Spanish horror. In particular, that time is a very good time for me for Spanish horror, and my personal taste, I enjoy that. So this one, The Killer Is Not Alone, I'd not heard about this one. It's such a title that could pass me by if I've not seen it. The Killer Must Kill Again, there's so many titles that are very similar to that. So I was probably thinking The Killer Must Kill Again, or stuff like that. So no, I had never seen this one, and it does share a lot of similarities that pop this in immediately. And I was like, oh, this is a lot like Hatchet for the Honeymoon, you know, the Mario Bava movie, or Hatchet for a Honeymoon, and Killer of Dolls, which was from the same year after, which is a great Spanish horror film, which I absolutely love. And I love these psycho kind of movies where it's basically just a character study, psycho serial killer person that's suffering from trauma, and we have this young, attractive kind of guy, and his father is a billionaire, he's rich, he's a businessman, he's super rich, and he's kind of like studying abroad, and one day something happens and he decides to pack it up and leave, kind of go on the run. He ends up at this like kind of like these collective housing things. You'll see one of those in like in America. What is that? Good Luck Miss Winecoff, which isn't as common anymore. People don't really have these little these houses. I don't want to call it a halfway house, but it's kind of that way, like shared housing place where room and board kind of place, where it's more common in Europe and it's more common around this time. So he basically gets a place here where there's all sorts of different kind of characters in here. One is kind of like a half-assed like psychiatrist or something. So the killers are all in the paper, and this guy's the killer. So he carries out his like murders with like a piano wire, and he has all these weird little like kind of nuances that stem back from his childhood trauma, which I kind of love that shit. It's always like, well, this is why this is there, and this is why this is there, and this kind of stuff. And it has a lot of images like the toy doll head rolling off, and you're like, oh man, that's just so fun. That kind of killer stuff. Like Maniac would obviously do that later on, but that's such a Maniac's super influenced to me by Hatchet for the Honeymoon. I always confuse that. Is it Hatchet for a Honeymoon or Hatchet for the Honeymoon? I remember one was just like listed wrong on a VHS or something, and it always throws me the fuck off forever. But so I feel like it's definitely in vein of that. Like if you were like, man, I really like those movies, I think you'll really enjoy this one. But there's some interesting aspects about it. Maria Rom is in here. Rom, who's in like Count Dracula and a lot of the Harry Allen Towers produced movies, but she plays like 3 roles, and it's kind of like a Cemetery Man thing, right? Every time you see that kind of person, right? In that movie, it's like love. This time, it's just like he's like, I'm gonna kill this person, and it just stems all from this childhood trauma. Maybe that's just how he sees that person every time. That possible victim is all the same person. Really good touch to it, to be honest. Really nice touch. This movie I enjoyed. I think I should rate it higher, actually. I gave it like a 3 out of 5. I think it's more like a 3.5. I think I enjoy this more. I think it has more stuff I do enjoy. But listen to the commentary, which was by Troy Howarth and Rod Barnett, who I believe is from Nashycast, which is a great podcast as well. And you can't go wrong with Troy Howarth. So they're talking about this movie, and they say it got made because like millionaires, like businessmen, wanted people to like, they're like, we get a bad rep in movies. And I it's like hard when you hear this, like, is that true? But it's hilarious to fucking think that they produced this Giallo movie or Giallo or Psycho serial killer movie just so they could be like, we get bad reps. But it does feel like that as well, because like the father's running around trying to find his son and be like, I love you, son, but he's distant. But at the same time, it's like, it's almost like they're like, we want to be like, show that we're supportive, but we don't want to come across as like crybabies at the same time, but we want to be helpful, we want to be stern. It's just like, it does definitely feel like that after it's pointed out, but still a good film. The director didn't really do that many horror movies, but besides the commentary, which is really good because Troy Howarth's very knowledgeable about the stuff, but Ron Barnett is a Spanish kind of film expert as well. We also have a new interview with Angel Asala, who I think he runs like a film fest, and he talks a lot about Spanish horror films of the time. He brings up Killer of Dolls, of course. It's so funny when I watch all the special features. My initial thoughts watching the movie, I'm like, this, and this, and I watch the special features, I'm like, they all say all this, so I'm just basically rehashing every fucking special feature that I just heard. So it's hard, to not repeat what everybody says. But as far as the entire product is concerned, it's a really good product. It's really well shot. It's a movie that I don't think much got any love. It didn't get much love. Mondo Macabre is really good at putting these things out, discovering them and talking about them and like getting eyes on them. But good performance from the killer. He's kind of a bizarre type, as most killers are. But yeah, good one. Visually nice looking, sounds good, looks good. Killer is not alone. Good stuff. Okay, the next one up is from Mondo Macabro as well, and this is Tokugawa Sex Ban. This goes by a couple other titles on Letterboxd and stuff. If you type that in, it'll pop up. 1972 here. This is a Toei film. Now, this was made, listen to the commentary again, this was made to kind of combat the Nikatsu erotic films line, which I've covered a bunch on here, and I really enjoy those. This movie is fucking nuts. This is by the director of School of the Holy Beast, the Japanese nunsploitation movie, and Star of David. hunting beautiful women, which I think isn't a Katsu movie, yeah. But that movie is insane. So I figured this one should be probably almost as equally crazy. This has a comedy flair to it. This is weird. So we have, we open it up, we set it up with all this exposition and history and stuff. We have this guy who's ruling, and he had a huge sexual appetite, and he had all these sons, and all these sons were sent to be lords and things like that, and all of them have had kids and had kingdoms and been given things like that. But this one has actually not. He is too preoccupied with war and battle, and he just doesn't have any interest in women. Not that he's a homosexual, or not that he just really very misogynistic, and he just doesn't like women. So they realize that they need to get this guy to have sex to like women, or it's all what's the point? So they bring in this princess for him to kind of sleep with, and it's hilarious in the beginning because they take these two aside, and they're both virgins and they don't know anything about sex, and other people are trying to explain to them how to have sex and what to do about sex, and it's just done in this kind of rule. And of course it's a failed kind of sexual experiment. They don't really do it well, but the one guy prepares him by saying it's like war. He's like, I'll play the war drum and you have to do that. And I just thought that was really funny, really clever, really goofy. But it doesn't shy away from violence or exploitation or sex or rape. Unfortunately, there's going to be rape in here. But what happens is our Lord ends up getting infatuated with this French woman. And they talk about this in the special features, that this director, the special feature with, I might as well talk about that now, interview with film critic Koshi Uno. Talk about how he was kind of first to do that import thing, right? How we had like Christina Lindbergh, remember she'd pop up, or like those Swedish kind of Japanese like movies and stuff like that. Or was that the Shaw Brothers had the import stuff too? But in the Japanese ones, we had like Sex and what the fuck is it? We had same director as well. We had Christina Lindbergh pop in these movies, and this was like the first one from 1972 where they bring in this French actress who actually pops up in a Jean Roland movie, Shiver of the Vampires, from 71. So it's like they bring in her, and our kind of lord here gets madly obsessed with her, but something goes wrong. The pimp kind of takes her away. She escapes. She's let out to escape by, the wife, the wife of this kind of lord, because he's not interested in her right now because he's obsessed with her. So what happens is he calls for a sex ban. So nobody can have sex anywhere, which adds hilarity and comedy and some castrations and some punishments that are pretty fucking brutal, including female harikuri, which I've never seen somebody female gets a harikuri. But what he does is he leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. People start to uprise. At one point they're charging the castle walls with a giant dick dildo thing. Fucking hilarious. But this movie's wild. A lot of Christian iconography at one point, because our French woman is a Christian and her pimp wants her, her slave owner wants her not to practice that and beats her at the life, and she won't give it up. But yeah, it's really tragic in a lot of ways, violent in a lot of ways, exploitation through and through, but very funny at the same time. Overall, this is a good one, and I really enjoyed it. I would recommend checking out Tokugawa Sex Ban from Mondo Macabro. Just a bizarre, crazy, weird movie. Exploitation through and through. I don't necessarily think it bleeds into horror movies if you guys are looking, but some of the bad people get their fucking just desserts, but I would recommend checking this out. I know this has not had any release stateside, I don't think. Well, I've never heard about this movie before, so I'd recommend it. Very fun, very crazy, very weird. All right, the next one is a 2024 watch here. And this is The Monkey from Osgood Perkins. That's right, I went and saw The Monkey in theaters, based on the short story by Stephen King that's in Skeleton Crew. Very fun short story. Been a long time since I read that one. I remember really loving Night Shift Collection and Skeleton Crew a lot when I was a kid. In my late teens. But this one, The Monkey here. So, yeah, Osgood Perkins has some good horror cred. Of course, he did Longlegs last year. Before that, he did stuff like I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House, Gretel and Hansel, Blackcoat's Daughter. Blackcoat's Daughter is my favorite of the bunch. I really also enjoy I'm the Pretty Thing. I really enjoy The Monkey. Spoiler here. And I think Gretel and Hansel is kind of cool, and I think Longlegs visually looks great. I just never connected with Longlegs, so I didn't know what to expect. This one looked more comedic than Osgood Perkins' previous films. This had like a kind of silly, goofy kick to it. I saw the trailer 8,000 times going to see movies, but we had like the narration of our character here kind of explaining everything with his raspy voice. Great voice for the movie. He plays two characters, twin brothers. But yeah, this is really good, really fun stuff. So essentially, without spoiling too much, The Monkey is about this toy monkey that does you wind it and it chimes and someone dies. But But yeah, that's pretty much the plot here. But what happens is a lot of crazy Final Destination style kills, which are kind of in vain with the Omen before that. So we have these crazy wild kills of, circumstances and randomness, not knowing who's going to die. We have a story of revenge. We have a story of life unfolding. And we go through this entire, like, two kids' childhood and things like that. There's a lot of good gags in there. It does get a little convoluted at times. The story's not told in exact chronological order at certain points, which might throw some people off. There's a couple cameos, which I don't really think I want to spoil. But there is a performance in here which is kind of goofy and funny from a character, from an actor that people really hate because he's in a movie that people really hate that I do not hate. I'll leave it at that. But yeah, the monkey is fun. It's got some wild kills. It's got some gore. Some of the effects aren't the best, but there's setups and payoffs. I think the monkey's a really fun horror movie. Probably this and The Presence are the two best out of the ones I've seen so far. I liked all four that I've watched. Saw all four in theaters. I've only seen the four so far. I'm just watching the theater 2024 movies. But yeah, it's been a pretty good year for horror theater stuff. I haven't watched The Wolfman. Doesn't look like I'd enjoy that. That's not my thing. But I will watch it eventually, just not for me. So I'm not going to see it in theaters. But I do want to talk a little bit about the monkey spoilers. So overall, I'd say recommended. Check it out. It's fun. All right, you're getting some spoilers here. So I like that the monkey box says, like life. And people are like, you idiot. It's life like. No, it's like life. Everybody dies. And I was seeing people post stuff about, Osgood Perkins dealing with the death of his parents and died both under really shitty circumstances and kind of died before their time and things like that if you look into it. But you're like, yeah, that could possibly be very much it. So it's like, but it's just the complete randomness. The mother says everybody dies, and it is kind of that way too. And at the end we see like the kind of chaos of it. The movie opens up and we just see complete insanity ensue. But overall, I like the monkey. I would recommend it. I definitely think on a rewatch it could possibly get better. Some of the kills are so ridiculous and silly and shitty, but it's fun. It's all in good fun, and I love the lead performance. I think he does a really good job. The kid, the father-son angle is not the best part of it, but I understand why it's in there. But the monkey, I like it. Really good. Check it out. Okay, we're getting to those 1982 movies. It's going to be super fucking quick here. The first one is The Golden Buddha vs. The Snake Phantom, a.k.a. The Golden Buddha vs. King Kong, or it has a bunch of other titles as well, just Golden Buddha I've seen it as. This is a Taiwan co-production from my understanding, and this is bonkers crazy shit, more in the fantasy realm, martial arts realm I'd say, if it's martial arts, I don't even fucking know. But essentially what we have here is an evil snake cult. Basically they can turn to snakes, so therefore we're going to have a bunch of snakes in here, we're going to have a bunch of animal cruelty, and the snake cult is kind of attacking people. I don't even remember why. The subtitles are not great, they're not exactly translated well. It's kind of hard to follow. But what we have here is a group of people that eventually are on their way to stop the snake people. There's a funny scene where like the snake people infiltrate like a food line, and there's like trying to cause problems, and then they'll jump out and start fighting, and if they get hurt they turn to snakes. It is completely bonkers. It is completely weird. There's giant fighting here where a guy's giant and there's like a giant snake as well. Sometimes the snake will like turn and like wrap up and like be a boa constrictor killing a chicken, and then turn to a guy and like pull feathers out of his mouth. The movie's absolute insanity. It's absolutely ridiculous. You think maybe it would be like, is this an Indonesian film or something? Because we have like the snake movie where we have the snake women where they kind of transfer back and forth between snakes, but snakes just seem to be a bigger thing in other countries in the Asian cinema, like like I said, Thailand, Taiwan, Hong Kong, Indonesia, all these like kind of films like that. They just generally kind of focus a lot on snakes in their films, if anybody's not noticed. But yeah, there's some animal cruelty. And, a lot of the other countries have got the MO by this time, obviously. These countries have not really stopped doing that kind of stuff. It's not as explicit as something like, Calamity of Snakes, which is fucking jaw-droppingly insane, or Centipede Horror, which is not nearly as bad as Calamity of Snakes. That's like the ultimate killer snake movie. Killer snake movie where snakes are killed in abundance. But this one is pretty forgettable, pretty nonsensical, it's so ridiculous. So like, I know a lot of people love them because they're so silly and weird. There has to be a certain sense of like where I can grasp onto the fucking story, or otherwise I'm just in La La Land like, what in the fuck is going on here? And Golden Buddha versus the Phantom Snake, or versus Phantom Snake, is what the fuck is going on here. It's on YouTube. Check it out. If it sounds like it's up your alley, maybe put it on in the background and just kind of watch the snake people. Okay, the next one from 1982 is an Indonesian flick, and this is Revenge of Nina Towok. And it goes under alternate names as well, more, long Indonesian names that I don't know how to pronounce, so I won't bother you guys with it. So this one is a relatively fairly straightforward revenge story. It's fairly straightforward as an Indonesian revenge story can get if you guys have seen any of them. I'm digging a lot of the Indonesian movies. Unfortunately, this one had subtitles auto-generated on YouTube and then translated to English, so it fogged and the subtitles suck. There's one point where the music and sound cuts out completely during a dance scene at a party, which I assume is probably for copyright, but it's like 5 minutes of people just like this, dancing, and there's no sound, and I'm just like, all right, I get it. Like, the movie completely stops for this fucking scene. So, basically what we have here is this woman makes a deal with an evil kind of shaman, kind of wizard-like woman to curse this lady so she could swoop in and get the husband, get the family, and kind of infiltrate the family and take over while this woman gets her face scarred. You know, it reminds me of that Japanese ghost story, right, where the woman is completely scarred so the husband can go live with, like, this royalty family or whatnot, kind of the scheming kind of deal like that. I can't remember of that, but that's like, there's a version of that in 1982 as well, but it's a common trope, right? So basically, her face gets disfigured, and I think she like kind of dies or goes into, you know, obscurity, and she ends up making a deal with another shaman to get revenge later on after years have passed. So we have all these kind of scummy characters that help this horrible stuff carry out and all these things like that. And this person, the daughter, has now grown up, not knowing what had happened to her mother and things like that. And the husband is like obviously somewhat happy with the family, but what happens is she comes back and she starts to get revenge here. She's got Freddy Krueger face, where her face is completely off before Freddy Krueger, of course, and she's kind of creepy and scary looking, and she goes and starts picking off all the people until the ending hits to a ridiculous level, and we have kind of a heartwarming moment where we find the necklaces match and all that kind of stuff like this. Revenge of Nina Towok is okay. It would be a lot better with better subtitles, better remaster, all that kind of stuff like that. Maybe the music didn't cut out for 30 minutes and, you know, and the subtitles weren't complete dog shit. But I'm getting at the point 98 now where I'm like auto-generating my own subtitles, and it's like, how far can I go? How low can I go? And, you know, this limbo is getting basically, I'm too low, man. I'm too low. Not that the movies are poor quality. It's just that the quality of the movies I'm watching in terms of like the restorations and shit are just too low, like, to watch them anymore. So like, I'm getting to the end. I got a lot of these videos to do, these big videos that I need to edit and record and stuff like that. But as far as that, I'm going to watch a lot of some horror, you know, horror movies that are horror adjacent, and some other ones I'll squeeze through. But as it's getting towards the end, I don't think we're going to hit like probably like 220 at very most, and we're like 185. So yeah, Revenge of Nina Towok is okay. You can skip it. Okay, the Patreon pick is Nightmares from 1983, which I'm probably going to have to cover in another 6 months when I talk about 1983, but here we go. This is by Joseph Sargent. And this one I always remember being like, was it possibly like shot for television and whatnot and like made for a series? But it's bizarre. It's definitely a TV kind of style thing. Joseph Sargent did The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. Great movie. Kind of crazy he did this. So this is 4 shorts in here. The first one, basically, who's in this one? You'll recognize the, I cannot remember the 2 leads in here are popular, but they're not like people that I would know. William Sanderson's in here, and oh boy, the guy from Unforgiven, I can't remember the character actor's name from Unforgiven, who runs the bar, he's in here too. So this is a very simple kind of story here, the first one. It's in line with the body bag story, right, with the gas station, which is more of a parody of these stories, but you know, somebody's in your backseat. This is the story. It's okay. It's perfectly well shot. It's well acted. Suspense is decent, but it's very bland. Not a great anthology segment, but not horrible. Kind of fine to be in here. The next one is one called The Arcade or something like that, or The Bishop. And this was one of the better ones, most memorable ones here. You have Emilio Estevez as this kind of gamer kind of guy obsessed with this game. He has to beat it. He has to beat to like the 13th level or something like that. His best buddy is what is it, Dustin Jacoby, who's in Bloody Birthday from 1981. He plays Curtis. He's great in this as well. It's still got them same glasses, different hairdo this time around, a couple years later. But essentially what happens is Emilio Estevez is completely addicted to this game like it's a drug. It definitely has some metaphor between drugs and stuff like that. It's got the 80s arcade life. So he's going in here trying to beat this game, spending all his money on it, just and whatnot, and he's trying to get to that 13th level. But he heard that somebody did get to the 13th level, but when he gets there, it's not what he bargained for. We gotta have some Tron crazy shit going on. Very fun, very entertaining, cool, very 80s, recommended segment. The next one here follows Lance Hendrickson, who is a reverend or a priest in this kind of small southwestern town, isolated, and somebody dies and he loses his faith. And he decides to leave. And on the road, he encounters this kind of truck that's kind of stalking him and trying to kill him and stuff like that. And, you know, Is he going to find his fate? Is he going to die? Is it going to be a demonic kind of truck and everything? Good one. Lance Henriksen's really strong in this one. Like how it's done. It unfolds really well. A simple story like that could be really bad, but the way this one's done is pretty fun. And the last story, finally, I forgot to check, man. I wanted to check if the little girl in this last segment was from Savannah Smiles, because she looks just like her. I swear, it could be her. I don't know. But it's got Veronica Cartwright and Richard Masur from The Thing in here, and Veronica Cartwright from Alien and Invasion of the Body Snatchers. So what is this family of three, and they have a cat, and they have this nice house, and Richard Masur is always overworking, he's always stressed, and he's always like, you got to do things yourself. He's kind of a fucking prick. And Veronica Cartwright, and they live in this nice house, and their daughter, and weird shit starts to happen. Some stuff starts to fall apart, and they realize they have a rat. It's very much of Unknown Origin style from 1983 as well. The Peter Weller, George P. Cosmatos movie where they fight a giant fucking rat, where Peter Weller does. So it's kind of in that vein. Same year after Deadly Eyes. So killer rats were on everybody's mind. Maybe there's a bunch more in New York City at this time. I don't fucking know. I'm sure there's never nonstop rats all the time. So, at first, Richard Masur is like, fuck this, we'll take care of the rat himself. It starts to get crazier and crazier. They do have a cat, so you know where that's going. The house starts to get ripped to pieces. The rat starts to knock over shelves, and the exterminator thinks it's more than just a rat. He thinks that it's an evil, spiritual rat that's supposed to get bad people. It's fun. It's really entertaining until the very end when they reveal the rat, and it does some forced perspective kind of, real kind of rat blown up. It looks like shit for this time. It doesn't look great, but I'll forgive it as a whole. It's a decent little short. It's not the best of the bunch, or a decent little anthology segment. The middle two are the best. The Bishop one with Emilio Estevez and the Lance Henriksen one are both very good. This one is just good. The first one is just mediocre. Overall, Nightmares is solid. It's fun. It's well directed. It's decently well written. I think somebody wrote the three of them. That somebody I think wrote possibly the last one. I can't remember, a different person, but it's well directed. It's a decent nice little movie here, Nightmares. I think I have a VHS of Nightmares somewhere back here. It's one that I definitely saw on VHS, and I know people are like, it's right there. Stop. I know people always yelling at me to look and grab a tape and shit, and I don't remember what's behind me, guys. I don't. But is there any features on here? 2 versions, widescreen and full frame, and people are like, why would you want full frame? Because probably you saw it on television. Maybe it was cut for full frame. Audio commentary with executive producer Andrew Mirisch and actress Christina Rains. No, maybe that's Christina Rains. But I could have swore that the little girl in here was actually Christina Rains is in the first segment. I knew it was somebody popular. I can't remember timelines. Christina Rains is an actress that right now she's not ringing a bell who she is. I'm sure somebody's like, but Dave, she's in a million movies. She's in this and this, and I'm like, my memory is doo-doo butter at times. Okay, guys, but that is Nightmares. Good stuff. All right, let's get into these questions, comments, and concerns. All right, let's get into these questions, comments, and concerns. Nick Moore from Belgium. Evil Kaneko. Marco McDowell returns to the dark side, and it was glorious. I need to own this release. It was equally excellent to see Martin Koskas from Lord of the Rings as a family man, gruff copper, though he did make his elf ears work. Who else can I say? Other than you, of course, Dave. What? Though he did make his elf ears work. Who else can say that? Other than you, of course, Dave. I don't have elf ears. I just have big ears. While I don't hate John DeBont's remake of The Haunting, the cast of the remake, Catherine Zeta-Jones, Lily Taylor, Liam Neeson, even bit parts from Bruce Dern and Virginia Madison is great. The CGI is not. I don't know if the performances are great either. I don't remember liking it. The classic still sends chills down the old spine, doesn't it? Russ Tamblyn is excellent in the film. I love that he got to have such a stellar career. Twin Peaks, Django Unchained. His last gig, he's retired now, I believe, was a doctor who counsels people being driven mad on Mike Flanagan's superb horror TV show The Haunting, with season 1 covering The Haunting of Hill House. That completes the circle, doesn't it? Great information, Not a big TV guy, but yeah. I've heard, I should have watched Haunting of Hill House. Questions. Dinner with Leatherface seems like an excellent doc. Which horror film or horror character should get a doc, but hasn't yet? See, Dinner with Leatherface is not a doc about a horror movie or a horror character. It's a doc about an actor who played a horror character. Yeah. But which horror doc? I don't know. It's so hard. There's so many special features on some of these movies. When they go to make a doc, you're like, I already seen all this shit. Like, it's almost weird. Like, it's almost like sometimes there's like too much information. So I don't know. I love I love a documentary about George Romero in general, a giant one. I love that. But a lot of the people that would be in it are dead now. So how long do you think teenage film buff Dave would last in a Scream movie? Unless you were Ghostface, of course. Oh, I don't know. In high school, I'd probably be drunk. I'd probably get killed pretty fast if they were targeting me, because I'd be drunk in high school. Now, I wouldn't even be involved in that situation. Will you be upgrading to 4K for Brandon Cronenberg's Antiviral? I saw it has 2 different cuts on it, and I do love Caleb Landry Jones. I do have the 4K from Severin Films already. Hope you're having better weather over there because we got rains again. Thank God. Take care and God bless. Thank you. Mike Saves, is Jeremy ever going to make a comeback? I don't know. I don't think he wants to do the show weekly. He might make a cameo or something like that, but I don't think he wants to constantly be on the show. Fetish Magic, my favorite, most consistent reviewer, looking as gorgeous as ever, Mrparka. Thank you. Super Saiyan and Death Metal God, I was waiting to hear your thoughts on Evil Nico. I want to pick that up at some point. Yeah, it's a weird movie. I think you'll know what you're getting into if you want to see it. Freak of Horror, new sub, fave serial killer movie, and worst serial killer movie you watched. Other than collecting and watching movies, what is your other hobbies? Favorite serial killer movie is Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer. I love a lot of them, though. I think Confessions of a Serial Killer, same kind of subject here with about Henry. Lucas is also great. I love Citizen X, but Henry is my number one, hands down. One of my all-time favorite movies, top 5, 6 horror movies of all time for me. Worst serial killer movie. I don't think worst on the top of my head. I've seen so many bad, fucking unwatchable, shitty movies. Like, if I mentioned worst serial killer movie, if I had to dig down deep, it would be some $5 fucking Z-grade piece of shit that I don't remember. So, like, when people say, like, I don't know. And I don't like to, like, focus on the worst of, you know what I mean? But I could go down Letterboxd and find some half-star movie about serial killers that I probably could recommend as worst movie. But it's not going to be a big mainstream movie. It's not going to be like, I really hate fucking Zodiac or something. I love Zodiac. But I appreciate you subbing, but Henry's my favorite. So we go, Poppy Carl, just watched your interview with Vogel for like the 3rd time. Thought I would sub. What's up? I'm Poppy Carly. Thank you. Thanks for subbing. Thanks for watching the Fred Vogel interview. I enjoyed that. I think I like that interview better than some of the interviews we did on the Blu-rays. But Gourd Guts, I met Malcolm McDowell last year, and he brought this movie. And he brought this movie up to watch. I brought it on DVD, then almost instantly I saw it was coming on 4K. It was so cool to mention him. Legend. Way Up Dude, person turquoise, he gave me a thumbs up. Thank you. Ken Coakley. I revisited... Oh, yeah. Cool meeting Malcolm McDowell, by the way. Ken Coakley. I revisited Diary of the Dead and Survival of the Dead recently. I picked up something in Survival of the Dead that I hadn't before. The Mary character who drove the Winnie said that she had Christopher to help her. I didn't notice that St. Christopher medallion in the screenshot. As a Catholic, I should have picked up on that before, because St. Christopher is the saint of travelers to get travelers to their destination safely. I didn't get that she killed herself if she was Catholic, because since suicide is considered a mortal sin, I wouldn't have mistaken the State Trooper zombie with a living being. Someone is looking like that wouldn't be able to survive it, or at least move. So, about the suicide, Steele, Gary Crawl, had the same thing. He wanted to do the Catholic cross. I probably did that all backwards before he shot himself in Day of the Dead, and Romero said, listen, no Catholic's going to kill himself. That's the ultimate sin. But Gary explained, and he pleaded, and he said the zombie thing, and he explained to him, he said, let me do this, it's important. So I think Romero somehow in his head convinced himself through Steele explaining this stuff, the actor who played Steele, Gary, that the possible suicide in that kind of scenario with the living dead not wanting to come back to harm people could possibly be used, because Steele was already dead with the bite and everything like that. And also you could take it as Steele's death, that he was so anti-zombie that he was willing to betray his Catholic beliefs and kill himself. Or, I don't remember exactly how Mary kills herself in the movie. I do not remember if she's bit or whatnot. It's been a long time since I watched Diary of the Dead. I like the drunken college professor in the film. The actor made me believe he was a war veteran. My only real problem with the political nonsense in the film, especially the radio voice of Stephen King as radio evangelist saying, get on your fucking knees. I don't watch televangelist, but King was too hammy. Also, Del Toro talking about illegal immigration having convoys from the dead rise to eat the living. I can understand what you're saying here, but Stephen King has been infamous in his books for always writing that kind of religious zealot as an over-the-top character. And televangelists are completely fucking unhinged for the most part. They scream and yell. And a televangelist, most of them I think are just scam artists to get money. But a televangelist that actually believed in Christianity or religion, I could see being over the top, because a lot of televangelists, that's just what they do. From all the ones I've seen and video footage of, Stephen King's definitely going to do it over the top, because that's just kind of his bread and butter on that kind of shit like that, right? But Stephen King actually is religious himself, so it's not... it's kind of a weird thing. He obviously has never liked televangelist. As far as Del Toro, I don't remember that scene. I remember him being on the radio, and I would say that Diary of the Dead, as the political stuff and social messages in Romero's first few films are less ham-fisted. As they go on, they're more ham-fisted, maybe because we're more living in the subject, or maybe just because the writing's not as great or their messages are rushed. But the thing about Diary of the Dead, especially watching it, there's a message in that movie about, with the internet and stuff like that, everybody has a voice now, so all the moderate, no, not moderate, he doesn't say moderate, that's not the term, I'm using here, because maybe I'm actually projecting a little bit on there, like on accident, but I'm not saying moderate, what's the word I'm looking for, reasonable, educated voices are being drowned out by the crazies. He said now that everybody has a voice, all the what's the word with M that I'm thinking of that's not moderate? The well thought out voices, or basically the intelligent voices, are being drowned out by crazy people because everybody has a voice, and the craziest ones are just screaming at the top of their fucking lungs. And he has this idea that everybody's being drowned out, and that's definitely what happens now. Everybody thinks that everybody's opinion is somebody screaming and going crazy, and this is this and this is this, but most of the people are being drowned out that have reasonable takes, and they stop talking. So where are we at here? Problem with political... Okay, so speaking... And a lot of his movies had the political stuff in there and social stuff. I just think he had better finesse back in the day to do it. In the very beginning of Diary of the Dead, it opens up, like, you could just see how much stuff is pushed into the movie. And it's like the more people told him that he was doing that, the more he put into it towards the end. It is what it is. So here we go. Speaking of religion and film, I watched the Indonesian film Grave Torture. It was pretty creepy with all the talk of being a real Muslim. It reminded me of Satan's Slave. Very similar. And that director went on and he basically did like a sequel kind of remake of Satan's Slave. Same director did Grave Torture. I certainly related to the nursing home setting, but I didn't get why the nurse would go get down with a withered old man. Getting paid, I guess. I also didn't like the old man calling the nurse an adulteress, but he was an adulterer. He basically gave the nurse all the blame. Yeah, he's a piece of shit, but she was being paid to do it. Last week I mentioned a TV movie of Hunchback of Notre Dame, Notre Dame, starring Warren Clark as Quasimodo. I forgot to mention that on 76 or 77 there was a TV movie of Dracula that was based on a stage play and starred Raul Julia as Dracula. He left the show to do Gumball Rally and was replaced by Frank Langella, who starred in the 1979 film. I looked all over YouTube to find the version with Raul Julia. There are photos of the Broadway version, and Julia looks amazing as Dracula. Julia later played Dr. Frankenstein in Frankenstein Unbound. Fun movie. When he did the Gumball Rally, he starred with Michael Caesarion from Frankenstein the True Story. Dan Stevens did versions of Dracula as Jon Stewart and Frankenstein as Clavell. Before I go, I want to mention Reggie Bannister being put in hospice care, so he has a pretty short time to live. Just like in Ravager. It's a hell of a way to break up a trio. Yeah, for sure. Unfortunate. The prayers and thoughts and all that shit. I mean, I'm not a very religious person, but my thoughts, thoughts and prayers don't... it's just... I'm thinking of Reggie Bannister. That's the best way I can say it, right? And I know his wife put up his address so you can write him, so he can read some letters from fans and everything like that. So maybe you do that. You can find him on Facebook. Gigi Bannister, I think is her name on there. Write him a note, write him a letter, and know how much that you loved his film work. And I think that is something that I think would help. If you're in bed and you're just laying there reading stuff, that how much people loved you and you changed their lives. I think that could help. I think that's a nice thing to do. But yeah, we're out of here. No update, unfortunately, but we're gone. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching, and as always, have a good one.